Every day at exactly 3:33 a.m., this girl wakes up startled. No more, no less. Every day it repeats, just like that. But this is not the strangest part yet, because she often sees memories that are not hers. Her name is Lucy. This happens to her every day. At first, Lucy felt very miserable about it, but as time went by, she gradually got used to it. So every time after this period, Lucy would usually go downstairs to drink something to relieve stress. But today, just as she picked up the cup, Isaac, Lucy's 8-year-old son, with his naturally aloof personality, seemed unable to perceive emotions, walking quietly around the room, also not actively talking to his mother. This gave Lucy a headache. Reluctantly, she had to seek help from a psychologist. The doctor asked Isaac to see if he remembered anything from waking up last night, and why he did that. Isaac was silent for a while, then suddenly spoke up. Meredith was crying. Upon hearing this, the doctor was baffled and didn't understand what it meant. Seeing this, Lucy quickly explained that her son is always like that, always imagining people or things that don't exist. Perhaps it's related to the boy's personality. Isaac never cries or laughs. No matter what happens, he never gets angry, and he always says he shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here. Lucy said she had taken her son to 7 doctors, but all of them were sure that the boy wasn't mentally ill, nor did he have autism. The doctor also said that he would try his best to support this case. After saying goodbye to the doctor, Lucy went to her workplace. She is an employee at the Children's Service Center. Currently, there's a case involving someone named Fisher. Due to his impulsive actions, he behaved poorly within the family, and he has been forbidden from seeing his wife and daughter. But Fisher also tried to explain he never hurt his daughter. They can't take away his fatherly rights like that. It was at this moment that some strange images started appearing in Lucy's mind. It seems to belong to an unfortunate little girl. Lucy didn't know what this meant, so she warned Fisher not to meet his daughter alone. Otherwise, there would be coercive measures. At the same time, she also approached Fisher's wife to understand the situation. Chloe said that she couldn't stop her husband. This morning, her husband went to see their daughter and acted very angrily. He threatened her again. When Lucy asked if anything else happened afterwards, Chloe replied that she had to call the police. Then he finally left. Lucy advised, if he comes here causing trouble again, the Child Services Center will take direct enforcement measures. But just as Lucy was saying, then suddenly saw the doll her daughter left behind. Suddenly a strange image appeared in her mind. It seemed like something catastrophic was about to happen here. Lucy was worried something bad would happen to her and her daughter. She immediately told Chloe to contact her directly if there were any issues. While speaking, she gave her contact information to Chloe. At this moment on the other side, a major murder case shocked the local police. Detective Dillon and partner Holness are responsible for the investigation. Based on the on-site investigation, the victim is Mr. Rhodes, about 50 years old. He was stabbed 3 times in the throat until he died. Because Rhodes was very famous, often involved in several activities, it was easy to capture his schedule and arrange his work at home. The killer is likely someone he knew. After reviewing and investigating recently, his neighbor Bell reported seeing a red Nissan parked in front of his house for a long time. Seems a bit unusual, doesn't it? Dillon quickly took careful notes. At exactly 3:33 a.m., Lucy woke up again. She turned on the light and was startled because she saw her son standing by the bed with a cold expression, not saying a word. Lucy angrily took him back to his room. After wishing her son good night, Lucy went downstairs to drink something to relieve stress. At that moment, she suddenly saw her son drawing something on the refrigerator. On it was the name Meredith. While she was puzzled by this picture, a shadow suddenly flashed behind her. Lucy felt something was wrong and hurriedly chased after it. She searched everywhere but found nothing, until she returned to the living room. Then a strange scene suddenly appeared. Lucy hurried to the bathroom to wash her face and calm down, and the next day took her son to see a doctor, and also recounted her situation from last night. Every day she wakes up at exactly 3:30 a.m. Dr. Bennett thought it was just her biological clock being too precise. Lucy also told herself that she had been researching online. This time frame seems to be called the Devil's Hour. As she prepared to speak about these inexplicable hallucinations, Dr. Bennett's phone suddenly rang. So, while the doctor was answering the phone, Lucy and her son also prepared to leave. On their way home, to make her son feel happier, Lucy started singing a cheerful song. After a while, the boy reluctantly smiled. This made Lucy very excited, but at that moment, a little girl suddenly ran into the street. Luckily, Lucy stopped in time. After the girl safely returned to her father's side, Lucy angrily stepped down, telling the man harshly that he shouldn't let his daughter wander in the middle of the road like that. It's very dangerous. Warren asked the girl if she was running around just now, and she nodded, so Warren immediately asked his daughter to apologize to Lucy. After the girl obeyed her father, Warren suddenly said, "Meredith, go home." Hearing the name of of the girl was exactly the name the boy mentioned earlier, made Lucy very surprised. This is a newly released horror and thriller film. The plot is full of ups and downs and suspenseful developments. The main actors are famous British actors, Jessica Raine and Peter Capaldi. If you love thrilling horror movies, don't miss it. The female lead Lucy always wakes up at midnight at 3:33 a.m. Every day is like that. She always dreams about strange events from her childhood. It's the scene where she witnessed her mother ending her own life. The strange thing is, her mother is actually still alive and healthy. She just has some serious mental issues and is currently being treated at a nursing home. Lucy visits her whenever she has free time. Whenever her mother suddenly goes mad, Lucy will take a button out of the drawer. The strange thing is that as soon as mom holds it, she calms down immediately, as if she found an emotional anchor. What Lucy doesn't know is, when she was little, her mom had a mental breakdown and wanted to end her life, and had prepared everything in advance. She hid a long shotgun in the closet, and put the closet key in her shoe. But after searching for a long time, she found out the key was lost. When she went back, she saw it had been placed in the closet door. She hurriedly and confusedly opened the closet. Luckily, the shotgun was still there. She thought she had forgotten to take the key out earlier, and was preparing to end her life after leaving Lucy one final letter. But when she decided to pull the trigger, by some miraculous way, the gun didn't fire. She tried again, but the result was the same. She hurriedly checked the bullets, and clearly saw the bullets were still inside. Just as she was about to try again, Lucy's voice suddenly rang out. Not wanting her daughter to see this scene, she quickly hid the weapon, but just after hiding it, suddenly she saw a strange button under her feet. Could this be fate? Not wanting her to end her life this way, from this moment on, she also decided to give up ending her life. Time returns to the present. At this moment, Detective Dylan and his partner Holness are conducting an investigation. The suspicious car mentioned by the victim's neighbor has also been found. After a careful inspection, he found a set of keys inside. It seems like they belong to a hotel, so both of them started checking nearby hotels, mentioning suspicious individuals. A hotel owner said that a customer had stayed here for about 9 years. Every year, the accommodation fee is paid in advance in cash, but that person doesn't live here. The room hasn't been vacated yet. Dylan wants to check that person's room, but the landlady refuses, because there is no search warrant. After all, this is related to personal privacy. No matter what Dylan says, the landlady doesn't agree. Holness glanced at her dog and suddenly asked what breed it was. The landlady, suspicious, asked what he was doing. Holness said it was a pit bull breed. It is banned here. There are 2 choices now. Either open that person's room, or he will take the landlady's dog according to the law. It seems like the landlady loved her pet dog more, so she agreed to lead them in. Holness pried open another lock that person had added. When the 2 walked in, they were suddenly confronted with walls covered in notes and photos. Strangely, Dylan saw today's date written next to one of the photos, clearly marked as October 4th at 11 p.m. A murder would occur at the location in the photo. This shocked Dylan greatly. But you don't know that Lucy is in charge of the children's community here, and the victim's house is Chloe's house in the case. At this moment, Lucy just brought her ex-husband home. Then she received a call from Chloe. It turned out that Fisher had come to see his daughter again, and he was yelling and swearing like crazy outside. Lucy reassured her not to open the door and that she would be there immediately. At the same time, a strange memory suddenly appeared in her mind. Could it be that this tragedy will happen soon? She quickly left the house, ignoring her ex-husband. When Lucy arrived at Chloe's house, the tragedy had already happened. The police had cordoned off the scene and were carrying a body out. Lucy's heart suddenly broke, but when she saw Chloe carrying her daughter outside, she sighed in relief again. Could the person in trouble be Chloe's husband? The scene shifts to Dylan. Holness suddenly calls him over to check. There seems to be something unusual. After Dylan steps closer, a few large words suddenly appear before his eyes. They read, "Where is Lucy Chambers?" The next day, Lucy finds Chloe, who has now moved to a new place, getting ready to find out what happened. It turns out that last night, when Chloe had just hung up with Lucy, the sounds outside also disappeared. Knowing Fisher's personality, he wouldn't give up that easily, so Chloe slowly went out to investigate. But when she reached the door, she couldn't see her husband anywhere. Could he really have left? She confusedly took a few steps forward. Right at that moment, a strange scene occurred. It was the scene of her husband being harmed earlier. When Lucy understood the situation, she kept comforting Chloe. Chloe recalled the strange scene from last night. It was around 11 o'clock at that time. It seems like she can feel the heart-wrenching pain in her chest, like someone is stabbing her with a knife. Maybe she's hallucinating. Lucy said it could be an illusion caused by fear. When Lucy said goodbye to Chloe and was about to go home, the file accidentally fell to the ground. In the evening, when Lucy was telling a story to her son before bedtime, but Isaac kept staring to the side without moving, she confusedly asked her son what he was looking at. Isaac replied that someone was standing there. Lucy looked carefully and saw no one there. this wasn't the first time he said that. Isaac always saw the figure of a stranger appearing in the house. Seeing her son's serious demeanor, Lucy asked what that person was doing. "Now he's standing next to you, Mom." "That's right." I was also very shocked. Lucy knew her son was always like that, and had seen many doctors but still no results. So after wishing her son good night, Lucy was about to go back to her room, but as she turned around, a shadow suddenly appeared behind her. Lucy took a few steps, suddenly heard someone behind say good night. She didn't know if it was her son talking to someone. The next day, Lucy continued to take Isaac to therapy. Through the conversation, Dr. Bennett discovered that Isaac's thinking ability is still like a normal child, but his mood is always indifferent no matter what happens. But with the cooperation of Lucy and the doctor, the boy started to open up and talk more. On the way home, Lucy took her son to the toy store. Children naturally love toys. The other kids seemed very excited to see the toys, although Isaac also chose one. Every time they came to this store, "You only chose one sunflower toy." Lucy wants her son to choose something else, but Isaac insists on choosing that toy. Lucy has no other choice but to buy it. On the way home, Lucy listens to an upbeat song and sings along. It seems to be the only way she can relieve some stress. As they get close to home, she saw a newly moved-in family nearby waving at her. Lucy hurriedly waved back. After returning home, Lucy happily took out a toy and handed it to her son, but it seemed Isaac didn't want to play with it. Lucy didn't understand why he always wanted to buy this, but wouldn't play with it. Then she told her son to go to his room, while she threw the toy into a drawer. Then Lucy went to work at the company. However, when she was about to back her car into the garage, even though she carefully checked and saw no car behind, she accidentally hit a car. At this time at the police station, Dylan, the person in charge of the investigation, told everyone, "In the past 2 weeks, 2 people have been murdered, one named Rhodes. One person is Fisher, Chloe's husband." After investigation, it was found that these 2 men are not related. So what is the motive of the perpetrator? Fortunately, they discovered a clue at the hotel where the perpetrator stayed, and they wanted to find a person named Lucy Chambers. They had to find this person before the others did. Then Dylan and Holness began investigating Lucy Chambers. First, they found someone with the same name in a restaurant, but after a long QA, the other party still didn't know anything. It seems that the investigation will definitely need more time. That night, Lucy woke up again at exactly 3:33 a.m. As usual, she went to the living room to have some wine and relax. At this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from the adjacent wall. Lucy stepped forward and listened. She thought of Meredith, the person her son often mentioned, the daughter of the family that had just moved in next door. "At first, I thought my son just called this name randomly, but unexpectedly, there was really a child with that name. It seems like you need to visit the neighbor's house a bit." The next morning, Lucy knocked on the door next door. The person who opened the door to greet her was Debbie, Meredith's mother. Lucy stepped into the house. The two talked enthusiastically. Debbie suddenly said that they also bid on Lucy's house, but failed because the bid was too low. While talking suddenly, a strange scene appeared. A large burn suddenly appeared on Debbie's face. When Lucy blinked again, the mark on her face disappeared. Lucy immediately asked Debbie where her daughter studied. It turned out Meredith and her son Isaac did not attend the same school, and it seems that the two families had never met before moving here. But how did her son know the name Meredith? Debbie suddenly received a call and asked to leave for a moment. Lucy sat in the living room and looked around, suddenly saw a few pictures on the cabinet next to her. It seems like a few nights ago, she also had this illusion right in her own house. What the heck is this? When Lucy looked around again, she discovered something strange. She slowly walked over and took out the toys her son had bought. Over there, Lucy's son Isaac, because of his shy personality, was often bullied at school. He had to do whatever the other kids asked, although this was very unusual, but the kids couldn't understand that. For this reason, Lucy went to the school and made a scene. Then she returned home with her son, but just as they were about to enter through the back door, they suddenly discovered that the key hidden under the pot was missing. The back door was also open. Did someone break into the house? Lucy asked her son to stay outside. She grabbed a rolling pin from the kitchen and walked in alone. Just as Lucy's nerves were as tight as a string, her ex-husband Mike suddenly spoke up, making Lucy's heart feel like it jumped out of her chest. Mike said he was in a hurry to use the bathroom, so he had to enter the house. Then they both sat down and started talking. It turned out Mike came here because he wanted to get back with Lucy, because the two separated when Isaac was just a few months old, so there was almost no father-son bond between Mike and Isaac. The most important thing is that Mike didn't acknowledge Isaac as his son, and this is also the cause of the conflict between the two. and now they are arguing about Isaac again. It seems that getting back together is unlikely. When Mike wants to leave, Lucy chases after him outside. She asked Mike where the back door key was. Mike was very confused by this. He said he entered through the front door and never used the back door. At this moment, Lucy suddenly felt short of breath. She hurriedly ran to find her son, but found that her son's room had become messy at some point. Lucy began to fearfully look around, but found nothing. "Your son Isaac has gone missing. Isaac, this old woman with white hair, is eating and watching TV very happily, but strangely, the TV doesn't seem to be on. Sometimes she even talks to the empty chair next to her, as if discussing the TV plot." The nurse behind thought the old lady had mental issues. When the old lady suddenly said the answer was butterfly, that person said it was wrong. The nurse was confused, stepped forward to help the old lady turn on the TV. A quiz show was actually playing on the screen. The nurse said, "It seems the correct answer is butterfly. Because you answered incorrectly, you can only receive £720. Look, I told you, butterfly." She doesn't know. At this moment, due to Isaac's mysterious disappearance, the police are tracking evidence at Lucy's house, and Detective Dylan has finally found "You are Lucy Chambers." Because of the 2 recent murders, plus the evidence collected from the suspect's residence, Dylan has determined that the serial killer's target is the girl in front of him, and possibly the perpetrator has kidnapped Lucy's son. He asked Lucy if she knew the victim named Rhodes. Some fragments of memories suddenly appeared in her mind. Perhaps he has ended his life. Dylan doesn't know what this means. He asks Lucy again if she knows him. Her ex-husband Mike says the main goal of the police now should be to search for their son, instead of asking about other cases. Dylan takes out the information he gathered from the perpetrator. He thinks the perpetrator has devised a conspiracy against Lucy, because it's not just Lucy mentioned above, and the name Isaac was also mentioned. The strange thing is, the text explicitly states that Isaac was not bound. Seeing the paper on the table, Lucy momentarily realized that one of the paintings was her son's watch. Dylan asked her if she was sure. Lucy confirmed that it was true. Then she went back to her son's room and searched. Sure enough, the watch was missing. But the strange thing is that this watch had been broken for a long time. Isaac hasn't worn it for a long time either. Why would the perpetrator take it? At this moment, Holness's mobile phone suddenly rang. When Lucy turned around, she saw a strange scene again. The fingerprints on the window were gradually disappearing. Lucy at this moment still thinks she is hallucinating again. Dylan says they will intensify efforts to search for Isaac. At the same time, they will post his picture to make more people aware. Perhaps the 2 previous murders were committed by the same person. He wants Lucy to think carefully if she knows the previous victims. Night falls. Debbie and her husband go outside to look at Lucy's house. Debbie says if they succeed in bidding for Lucy's house, perhaps the missing person is their daughter. Warren comforted his wife, "As long as I'm here, I won't let this happen." Then the 2 of them returned home. Lucy woke up right on time at 3:33 a.m. Because of her son's disappearance, she didn't feel like doing anything, but suddenly there was a strange noise in the attic upstairs. Could Isaac be hiding up there? So Lucy pulled down the ladder, then climbed up and used her mobile phone to look closely, but it was clear that there was no one there. So where did that sound come from? Just as Lucy was utterly puzzled, a bizarre scene appeared. Lucy looked back in horror. That figure had disappeared. She hurriedly retracted the ladder. Could there really be something mysterious in the house? Lucy had just calmed down a bit, when suddenly a woman's laughter rang out from downstairs. She slowly walked over to check, but saw no one. So Lucy angrily cursed a few times, but when she was about to return to the bedroom, then the ladder at the back suddenly opened. Too terrified, Lucy quickly went back to the bedroom and closed the door. After calming down, she opened the door again. Sure enough, everything was back to normal. Perhaps due to being overly stressed, she just had a hallucination. When Lucy was about to go to sleep, unexpectedly, a more interesting scene appeared. Lucy felt she couldn't stay here any longer, so she ran straight outside. After calming down, she called Detective Dylan. Although Lucy didn't know Rhodes, the victim in that case, the inexplicable fragments of memory that surfaced in her clearly showed he had ended his life. But why was it so different from reality? There must be some connection, so she wants to go to Rhodes's house to assess the situation. If she finds something, she will let Dylan know. The next early morning, Lucy visits Rhodes's house. His wife seems to still be grieving. After chatting for a while, Lucy pretends to want to use the bathroom, taking advantage of this time to check Rhodes's room. As she just stepped up the stairs, she saw the image of the violin appear in her memory. It seems those fragments of memories are not illusions. Could it be that she had been here before? She stepped into the room and looked around. The large bloodstain was still not cleaned. At the same time, she looked forward. Fragments of memories flashed in Lucy's mind again, so she followed the hint and took down one of the books on the shelf. Unexpectedly, inside she discovered a safe. Lucy hesitated for a moment. She felt like she had seen the password somewhere, so she entered what she thought it might be. Sure enough, the safe opened. Inside, she found a key and a certificate. The address on it seemed to be a very distant place. Lucy immediately took these two things and left. Then she called Dylan and gave him the address on the certificate. As soon as Lucy was about to leave, the nursing home called her. It turned out her mother had secretly escaped and the caregiver couldn't find her. After hearing the call, Lucy had to go find her mother first, but she knew one place. But Mom often comes here. Sure enough, when she arrived, she saw her mom sitting on the bench. After talking to her, she found out her Alzheimer's disease seemed to have returned. There was no other way. Lucy could only stay there with her mom. At this moment, Dylan and his partner Wholeness arrived at the location Lucy mentioned. This is a large old house. It seems like no one has taken care of it for a long time. With Wholeness's rude personality, he forcefully opened the door. As they stepped inside, unexpectedly, they found Isaac's watch on the table. The two analyzed that the perpetrator had brought him here and hidden the boy away. Not long after, Lucy also arrived. When she saw her son's watch, she suddenly had a bad feeling. She quickly looked around. Dylan saw this and asked her to calm down. We have searched this place, and there's no one here. What about inside? Where? There. Seeing the door suddenly disappear, Lucy knew it was caused by that strange memory, but she still intended to move the wardrobe to see. Unexpectedly after moving it, there was actually a door behind it, and the key she found at Rhodes' house could open it. At this moment outside, Lucy's mother suddenly heard a voice coming from the distant forest. She hesitated for a moment and then walked straight into the forest. At this moment, Lucy and Dylan also stepped into the basement and saw Rhodes' photos along with some children on the table inside. After they turned on the light, a lot of children's toys suddenly appeared, and there was also a video camera next to them. That's right. Unless something unexpected happens, then Rhodes is very likely to be a pedophile. Dylan asked Lucy to immediately inform her partner and asked him to call for backup to gather information. This way, Lucy's mother walked a long time in the forest, then suddenly stopped. Isaac was sitting there. The boy still coldly said, "He shouldn't be here." But Lucy's mother doesn't understand. She brought Isaac to find a very sad Lucy. Seeing her son was okay, Lucy rushed to hug him. Back at the police station, Dylan began to ask Isaac if he knew who had taken him. The boy replied while he was in the room. Suddenly someone came and said, "You don't belong here." Then not long after, a man came and took you away. Wholeness asked if you still remember what the person looked like, but Isaac suddenly pointed at Dylan, strangely. Have you ever experienced that feeling? Suddenly feeling familiar with a certain scene at a certain time, as if you had experienced it before. Is this an illusion or a confusion of time and space? The main character Lucy often experiences this. Some fragments of memories that never happened appear in her mind inexplicably. What's even stranger is that she wakes up exactly at 3:33 every morning. This period is called the witching hour. At Lucy's house at this time, although her missing son has returned, Detective Dylan still has many questions. After investigating and collecting evidence, it shows that Rhodes is actually a pedophile, but it's clear that Lucy didn't know him. So how was she able to open the safe and enter the correct password? The most important thing is how she knew where the old house was, and that there was a hidden basement. Lucy isn't running away anymore. She says she always thinks about things that aren't real. Some memories are very strange. Those memories feel like they've happened before. For example, Rhodes' old house. I remember that house. The scary room in the basement. The two girls in the photo are dead and were pulled out of the water. That didn't happen. Those two girls are still alive. I had a private talk with them. Lucy said if so, then these memories sometimes are also wrong. She herself doesn't know what's happening. Dylan doesn't know if he should believe Lucy's story or not. But it's too late. He should return. When he was just about to leave, then Lucy ran outside. She suddenly remembered something. It was this morning. She and her colleague went to handle a child case in the community. A young boy named Aiden went missing. His mother hadn't seen him for several days. Initially, there was nothing unusual, but while at his house, fragments of memories suddenly came to her mind. It seems like Aiden is in danger, regardless of whether Dylan believes what she says or not. She hopes the police can investigate this matter. Dylan replies that he will do so. It seems like he still has doubts about about Lucy's strange stories. Dylan returns to his home and starts connecting the selected photos from the hotel where the perpetrator stayed. Currently, this person is still at large. I don't know if the person accidentally harmed someone or deliberately targeted a goal. However, when you check, suddenly a photo caught your eye, and Aiden's name was written on it. Isn't this the person Lucy just mentioned? Could it be that the perpetrator actually intended to harm this person? This is unbelievable, but if the opponent truly intends to act, perhaps this is also a chance to catch him. So the next day, you and Holness set out to find Aiden, but after a long search, there were still no clues. With no other choice, you had to look for Aiden's girlfriend first. But this girl didn't seem very well, and there were also many other people in the house. She seemed scared, but didn't dare to say anything. Holness just needed a glance to know that this girl was being controlled by someone else, but both of them didn't have any evidence, so it was hard to investigate. They could only temporarily stay outside to monitor the situation, and so it went on until evening. When the two were talking, a bald guy suddenly grabbed the girl's hair as if to warn her of something. Such a scene made Holness sitting in the car extremely angry. Ignoring Dylan's persuasion, he picked up a steel pipe to prepare to rescue the girl. Seeing his partner rushing in furiously, Dylan quickly called for backup. When Holness broke into the target's house, the bald guy was still strangling the girl. He also knew that Holness came with bad intentions, so the two started fighting. The girl took advantage of the struggle to flee. As a police officer, dealing with this low-level thug is more than enough. Sure enough, you took him down in just 2 moves. But when you were about to take him to the police station, someone suddenly attacked you. But after the confrontation, you still managed to handle the threat. Unexpectedly, another person came wielding a weapon. This guy looked tough at first glance. He slashed Holness's arm, then pinned him to the ground, ready to finish him off. Luckily at that moment, Dylan rushed in just in time. He grabbed the attacker, but Dylan's small build was no match for his opponent. Dylan was brutally beaten and thrown to the ground. Just like that, 2 people teamed up to restrain that guy, because they wanted to find Aiden. Lucy personally approached his girlfriend to ask about his whereabouts. After knowing that Lucy was truly concerned for Aiden's safety, the girl gave a location. It seemed to be a racetrack. While Dylan was checking the information left by the perpetrator, he discovered a race car in the photo. He hurried to the evidence room and looked into the racetrack location, but Lucy had gotten there first, and had also found the young man named Aiden. It seems he was involved in smuggling here with a group of friends. Lucy, as a child services worker, hoped he would go home soon, but he warned her to get out of there, and pulled a knife from his pocket. Lucy hurriedly says, "You're in danger now. It's very likely someone wants to harm you." As she is talking, a car rushes from behind. The person stops for a moment, then suddenly reverses, and then quickly leaves. Could this person be the perpetrator? Lucy quickly calls Dylan, but the other end of the line didn't answer, because at this moment Dylan is also on his way here. The sound of the car's GPS system drowned out the phone's sound, although he couldn't hear it, but he saw that suspicious car speeding out of the racetrack, so he quickly asked a colleague to check the license plate. Luckily, the other party was waiting at the red light. Not long after, the colleague said they couldn't find the license plate in the database. Dylan understood that this person might be the suspect he was investigating, so he immediately chased after him. But on the way, a heavy rain suddenly poured down. Dylan had to chase and call for support at the same time, but while chasing, the person suddenly stopped the car. Seeing the other standing still, he hesitated for a moment. Then he decided to get out of the car and prepare to investigate the situation. After taking a few steps, the person in that car also got out. "Put your hands on the car quickly. You shouldn't be here. You don't want to do this, right? Don't come here." "Dylan, I've never wanted to hurt you before, and I want to keep it that way." Dylan doesn't understand what the other person means, but since he has a weapon, he still steps back, trying his best to persuade the other person to calm down. "Put the gun down and talk slowly." Gideon says it's useless. No matter what Dylan says, he won't believe it. "What are you doing?" "I am waiting." "What are you still waiting for?" When the telephone pole broke, Gideon took the opportunity to escape, leaving Dylan standing there, stunned. Early the next morning, Aiden handed over his earnings to his boss, but the boss told him, because the 3 brothers of his girlfriend were arrested and taken to the police station, he suspected that he had been betrayed by Aiden, so he wanted him to prove his innocence. That night, the homeless couple were preparing to go to bed, unaware that danger was also approaching. The next day, the police unexpectedly sealed off the Holness's house. It turned out that the couple had been murdered. "Wait until Dylan arrives," the colleagues told him. They caught a boy named Aiden. The other party admitted to his crime. The main reason was for revenge, because previously Holness and Dylan had caught 3 of their accomplices. Hearing the name Aiden, Dylan suddenly had mixed emotions. Not sure if he's sad or blaming himself. His colleagues also persuaded him not to go up there, but Dylan still wanted to go up to see his comrade one last time. He suppressed his emotions and stepped in, but as soon as he saw Holness' body along with his wife, Dylan couldn't bear it. He remembered that the target of the perpetrator was Aiden. If they don't stop him, so will he harm Aiden, and my partner won't be harmed because of this. The mother and daughter were singing while driving. Suddenly a little girl ran across in front. Luckily, the car stopped in time. Terrified, Lucy opened the car door and was about to scold the girl, but the girl didn't seem to hear and ran away. She saw that it was Meredith, the neighbor's daughter. Lucy immediately took her son to find Debbie. She said Meredith always crossing the road alone was very dangerous. Unexpectedly, when Debbie called her daughter to ask clearly about the situation, the answer shocked Lucy. If Meredith has been at home all this time, then who was the child that just ran across? Could she have been hallucinating? She told Debbie that maybe she had seen wrong, but when she asked her son, Isaac also confirmed he had seen Meredith. Upon returning, Lucy saw Detective Dylan waiting at the door. He was sitting there with a sad look on his face. Lucy sat down next to him. They started talking about Aiden and Holness. If they don't stop the killer, then the murderer will harm Aiden, and Holness then wouldn't die at Aiden's hands. Considering the 2 people this culprit harmed before, could someone predict the future? In any case, this person is a serial killer and kidnapper. Only by catching him can we find out the truth. That night, Lucy had another dream. She dreamed she was in prison. Looking at her phone, she knew this was a moment in the future. After completing the procedures, she approached one of the prisoners. "Hello, Gideon." When Lucy woke up, the exact time was 3:33. She calmed down a bit, then take out the laptop. Based on the name just seen in the dream, start searching for the name Gideon. Although many people have this name, but one piece of news caught her attention. That was 50 years ago. After a 9-year-old boy named Gideon stabbed his father to death, he suddenly disappeared. She hurriedly called Dylan. Lucy said that even though she didn't know why, she was sure that the serial killer was the guy named Gideon, and according to information, he had a younger brother, living in Cheltenham. This seemed a bit strange, but she still hoped Dylan could go with her. Dylan looked at the photo in front of him, hesitated for a moment, and then decided to go with her. After a long journey, they both found Gideon's younger brother. He said he had never seen his brother again since he disappeared, but he felt that his brother was still secretly watching him, because every year on his birthday, a red Nissan car would appear at the end of the street. He thought his brother was quietly watching him from somewhere, and when he celebrated his birthday 3 weeks ago, even received a message from his brother. Then he opened the recording and played it for the 2 to hear. Inside, it was Gideon congratulating his brother on his birthday for the first time. Then he said he couldn't help himself, hoping his brother could understand. His brother was the first person he saved. Dylan heard the voice inside and found it very familiar. It seemed to be the man he chased in the rain the other night. It seems like they're on the right track. The next step is how to bring this person to justice. Both recorded the audio, then sat in the car and listened to it repeatedly. After listening many times, Lucy heard a train horn in the background, and it seems like places like this aren't many. Dylan decided to go back and ask a colleague to check first. The next day, Dylan met with his superior. He hoped to mobilize a team to investigate a location. It turned out that with the help of his colleagues, he found a location matching the time of the message, but because last time Holness was killed in retaliation, Dylan was in a negative state of mind, and his superior didn't want him to continue intervening in this case. In another development, Lucy had just dropped her son off at school when she received a call from Dylan. He also told her the location he had found, and planned to check it out himself, but the image of Dylan getting hurt suddenly flashed in Lucy's mind. Could he be in danger? Dylan said if he discovered anything, he would let her know immediately. After saying that, he hung up. Lucy was worried something might happen, so she intended to go over and check, but just as she was about to drive, another memory suddenly came to mind. It seemed like she was having a wedding, and she saw herself in a long dress walking towards Dylan. The 2 looked at each other happily. Even Holness was sitting below. At this moment, Dylan had reached the target location based on the clues. There are many big warehouses here that are perfect for hiding. After some time searching, he found the car the suspect was driving that night. It seems Lucy's analysis wasn't wrong. This person is indeed the serial killer he's been looking for. So Dylan started investigating everything one by one. Sure enough, he saw many images and information in one room, and the picture of the boy Isaac was right there too. It seems like this person has been here for a long time. Beside the wall, There's a large hole inside that seems to hide some mystery. Dylan slowly steps in. This place seems to have turned into a prison. There's a foul smell everywhere, and there's someone tied up in a room next door. Regardless of what this person has done, Dylan must rescue him first. At the same time, footsteps can be heard not far away. It seems like Gideon has returned, so Dylan untied him and led him straight to the door on the other side, told him to get out of here first, while he went to find a weapon for self-defense and prepared to confront the enemy. But the boy hadn't run far outside when a gunshot suddenly rang out, and he was shot immediately. Dylan hears the gunshots and can't help but worry. At the same time, Gideon is also heading there. He seems to know that Dylan is hiding nearby. As he approaches, he says he has been in many battles like this, so no matter what, Dylan won't win. Dylan stops hiding and steps out immediately, but Gideon had anticipated this, skillfully dodging all attacks. Then he grabbed Dylan's weapon and kicked him to the ground. Gideon said that it would be best if he didn't stop him, or he wouldn't hold back anymore. Seeing the opponent wanting to leave, Dylan got up and chased after him. Unexpectedly, his sneak attack failed and he was knocked to the ground again. This time, Gideon angrily punched Dylan in the face, making him unconscious. Gideon took this opportunity to grab a weapon and prepare to leave, but just as Gideon started the car and was about to drive away, Lucy arrived in time. Just like that, the serial killer Gideon was captured. That evening, Lucy was happily playing with her son. Then suddenly Dylan called. He said Gideon wouldn't look for a lawyer, only requested to meet someone named Lucy. If she goes there, Gideon will tell the whole truth. So that night, Lucy walked into the interrogation room. Gideon told her to sit down like an old friend. When Lucy sat on the chair with a confused look, Gideon suddenly asked, "Have you ever been to this room before?" "Never, but do you feel like you have?" "Why do I feel that way?" "Memory illusion. It's like a short circuit in the brain." The feeling of a moment flashed through her mind, making her feel like she had experienced it all before. Gideon told Lucy he knew that Lucy, every night, would wake up from a nightmare, and sometimes had some strange memory hallucinations. This didn't mean that Lucy was abnormal. On the contrary, she was very normal, and he will help Lucy understand these things. But Lucy asked him why he kidnapped her son. Clearly, she and he had no enmity. "Why do that?" Gideon said he did not kidnap her son, but Lucy didn't believe. "It was you, because all your plans had Isaac's name on them." No matter what Lucy says, Gideon still doesn't admit to kidnapping Isaac. Seeing Lucy losing control, Dylan sounded the alarm outside. Lucy stepped out and asked what was going on. Dylan replied not to let her emotions become rage. It's easy to fall into the opponent's trap. Then the two of them began interrogating Gideon. Dylan asked why he harmed his father when he was only 9 years old. Gideon said it was because his father wanted to harm him first. Neither of them understood what this meant. Could it be that he had the ability to return from the dead? Gideon was also about to recount his childhood experience. And this is where all the stories began. You can record it if you want. Life is like a scratched record, going around in circles in a loop, but can't remember hearing this song before, so I can dance to it without realizing. But I don't just remember this song. I can even move that needle on the record player. This is the opening line where Gideon tells his story to Lucy. In 1958, Gideon was born into a wealthy family, with the blessing of holy water. He grew up very healthy. When he was just 3 years old, his mother became pregnant again. Gideon happily sensed the new life coming. Then his younger brother was born and grew up smoothly. They thought the four of them would live happily together. But as his father's temper worsened, just because Gideon didn't listen to the priest in the church, he was severely beaten when he got home. His parents had more and more conflicts, until one day, they finally chose to divorce. But no matter what, Gideon still cared a lot about his younger brother. But the rest of their lives was not something they could decide themselves. On that cold windy afternoon, suddenly the father took the two brothers to the edge of a cliff. He told them that their mother had betrayed the family, wanted them to pray for their mother. The two brothers didn't understand their father's meaning, so they could only comply. But right after that the father started the car. After Gideon died, it was as if time had been stored away. Your mother went through labor pains, and you were born again. After being baptized with holy water, you grew up healthy. Then your younger brother was born smoothly. Life was just like before. You were brutally beaten by your father for not listening to the priest. Then your parents' relationship started to deteriorate until it ended completely. The father and the two brothers plunged down the cliff again. When the scene changes, time freezes once more. Everything Gideon experienced in his life will be relived. But what people don't know is, the memories of each life are clearly imprinted in his mind, each time he is reborn. After going through many cycles, Gideon finally tried to change everything. However, no matter what he did, he couldn't change the outcome of his father driving the two brothers off a cliff. To protect his younger brother, before things got worse, he took advantage of his father sleeping, grabbed a knife and ruthlessly ended his life. From that point on, even though he survived, he began a lonely life. Time returns to the present. Dylan asks Gideon if this is a rebirth. Gideon says says no. This is a reenactment. Same body, same life. Lucy asks about what Gideon said before that she had met him in another life. Gideon answered yes. It seems that even this current conversation, they may have spoken countless times. Gideon continued his story. When he was young, he used this ability to make himself increasingly wealthy. He happened to meet a girl wearing a yellow hat. The two didn't speak, just smiled at each other. But not long after, he witnessed with his own eyes 4 people in her family die in a car accident. Such a bizarre scene deeply etched into Gideon's heart. He thought meeting the girl might be God's will, until another life came. He knew very well what would happen next to their family. Gideon didn't want to witness death again, so that morning, you deflated their tires. Of course, the tragedy was averted, and Gideon seemed to have found his own direction. He recorded all the tragedies he encountered in each life. For example, where there was a fire, he would find the cause beforehand and handle it. Hearing this, Dylan suddenly asked, "If you could really prevent these things, why didn't you stop 9/11? Gideon says, "How do you know I didn't try to stop it? But one person's ability can't prevent everything. But I did stop 712. What's 712? You don't know, do you?" Dylan smiles. "You think it's all Gideon's fault. But that's just imagination. You started talking about the 2 previous murders in the area." Gideon said on Rhodes' computer. He saw a lot of bad images. From there, he knew this person had to die. Not to mention Chloe's husband. In a past life, he harmed his wife and daughter. That's why I freed him first. Dylan still doesn't trust Gideon. He thinks Gideon made up these lies to escape punishment. Then he took the notebook found in Gideon's clothes, first mocking his ugly handwriting, then saying that there are many locations and times of many people recorded in it. Dylan thinks that if Gideon truly reincarnates, then next time that happens, this notebook will also become completely blank. Do you have to rewrite it every time? Gideon said it's because he wants to revise it. Since each reappearance only brings back memories, you need to write down everything you remember. Then when you can control these things yourself, new information will also appear. You have to add these things in. Then Gideon asked Dylan to open the last page. He said this conversation had happened too many times, even Dylan mocking his ugly handwriting. Gideon signaled for him to continue, so Dylan opened the last page, only to see very neat writing on it. "How's the handwriting now?" During the break, Lucy and Dylan discuss whether what Gideon just said is true. Dylan still doesn't believe it, but Lucy still wants to clarify. Did he really kidnap his own son or not? And the strange things that often happened to him. So both sides exchanged again. Gideon continued speaking. "The girl with the yellow hat he once saved. Her name is Evelyn. She should have died in that car accident, but it was you who changed her future. Unexpectedly, that incident awakened abilities similar to mine in her. She seems to recall that car accident. So in the next life, Gideon won't need to intervene. She can change everything herself, and normally can catch glimpses of things that don't exist. For example, the pieces of paper stuck on the wall. Another example is a stranger suddenly appearing in the house, and then disappearing in the blink of an eye. Gideon thinks she can see the previous world. Even the footprints left by others in past lives still remain. No matter where she goes, these ripples will follow." After hearing this, Lucy suddenly had an epiphany. "Wasn't what happened to me the same as what happened to Evelyn? But how could I have awakened?" Gideon kept saying that everyone he ever encountered, and anything he prevented, was to save innocent people, and because Dylan stopped him, everything changed for Aiden and caused Wholeness's death. But that doesn't matter. Dylan will always meet Wholeness in another life. Even though Gideon said so, Dylan was still not convinced. Gideon had no intention of convincing him to believe, because his real purpose was just to make Lucy believe him. He said he had to spend 25 years in prison because of Lucy. Now he also needs Lucy to answer this question. He asked Lucy to think carefully. What was the worst thing that ever happened to her? What was the worst thing that ever happened to her? It turns out those fragments of memory are actually real. Maybe her mother really ended her life when she was young in a previous life. Gideon said that 30 years ago, he was the one who prevented it from happening. At that time, Lucy's mother was on the verge of a breakdown. It was you who ran to Lucy's house, removed the pin from the gun. The purpose was to prevent this tragedy from happening. That's also true. Her mother lived very well after that. Lucy was shocked by what Gideon said. Seeing her about to collapse, Dylan advised her not to trust this man completely and prepare to leave with Lucy, but just step outside. After hesitating for a while, Lucy suddenly closed the door and blocked behind with a chair. She wants to know everything that happened to her and her son. Gideon told her, in her past life, Lucy saw herself in prison, to warn her in the next life, your son Isaac doesn't belong here, and the person Lucy is about to marry isn't her ex-husband Mike. Then he asked Lucy to give him a shoelace. He would explain everything. Dylan, outside, feared she was in danger and wanted to stop her. But at this point, Lucy already trusted Gideon. When she brought the shoelace to Gideon, Gideon immediately tied many knots, and explained that the knot symbolizes the starting point, and so on. Gideon always thought that reincarnation was a straight line, like living in this life, thinking that each life should only exist in the long river of memories. But he was wrong. Each reincarnation creates a new cycle. They are not straight lines, but are wound into circles. The adjacent threads symbolize past or future lives, but because the threads are wound too tightly, thus those changed in each lifetime, will always see those who or those things not belonging to this life, but also only able to see it without being able to touch. But Lucy's son Isaac is different. He can not only see, but also touch or talk to them. Sometimes it will be unstable, accidentally sliding from one life to another. For example, in another life, all life trajectories have changed. Lucy Debbie's neighbor bought Lucy's house for cheap. Their family will move into Lucy's house. Whether it's her daughter's toys or a drawing she made, they will appear in this house. But because the cycles are tightly connected, Isaac could always see another life in it, even sometimes accidentally, directly crossing into another life. This is also the reason why Isaac suddenly disappeared. Perhaps he shouldn't have existed in this world from the start, like being born in a cyclical world, so he has no joy or anger, nor will he love anyone. Lucy suddenly burst out laughing when she heard this. She said she could believe anything Gideon said, but she didn't believe that her son didn't love her. Lucy no longer wanted to continue listening. She wanted to go back to find her son. At this moment at Lucy's house, Mike was always rude to Isaac. He not only didn't consider Isaac his son, I also felt I couldn't go back to Lucy because of Isaac's existence. But Isaac was indifferent to his father's words. When Isaac was about to go upstairs, he secretly took Mike's charging phone. After returning to his room, he put the wet clothes on the electric heater. Lucy was about to go home when she also received a voicemail from her son. "Mom, I want you to come home. Mom, please go home. I love you." In Lucy's eyes, she didn't care how many lives she could live. As long as she could be with her son, she was satisfied. But what she didn't expect was that when Mike opened Isaac's room door, the things left on the stove had burned. In Isaac's eyes, you couldn't distinguish reality anymore. Because of being indifferent to everything, perhaps only maternal love truly exists. Mike, who could have saved you, is selfishly shutting the door. At the police station, Gideon is about to be transferred elsewhere, but on the way, he quietly used the metal flower on Lucy's shoelace to unlock his hands. By the time Lucy got home, the flames had engulfed the entire house. Lucy angrily stepped forward and asked Mike where her son was. Mike said he had tried his best, but still couldn't find Isaac, so Lucy didn't hesitate to rush into the fierce flames. She ran up and down the stairs, but didn't see her son, until she fell to the ground, suffocating from the thick smoke. Lying on the ground, she vaguely saw her next life, she and Dylan happily walking into the wedding chapel. In this life, she became a police officer. In the world, there are still serial killers, but this time, she personally led the team to catch them. In the courtroom, Gideon told her again the secret of reappearance, but Lucy in this life did not believe it. But as the cycle keeps turning, the fragments of memory intertwine. Eventually, it will still appear in her mind. This is the end of the first part of the movie, The Devil's Hour. Is it the detective room? Has everyone been saved? It looks like that's the case. They are treating the burned mother. Everything alright, officer? It's nothing, just a kind of feeling. It's a memory illusion.